Hi, everybody. We're going to start this Port Commission meeting for our regular scheduled meeting for Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. First thing we're going to do is close our executive session and reopen our public meeting. And I will take a roll call. Is Commissioner Briscoe online?
I'm sending him a new.
Commissioner Shepard, Commissioner Bell. I think we'll give it a couple minutes to see if Commissioner Briscoe comes in. While we're doing that, we do have two sign-in sheets. Wanted to make sure you signed up on the right one. So if I say your name and you meant to be here for the public hearing and want to discuss the public hearing, if I call your name during the public comment period, just tell me that you're here for the public hearing. We're going to take that public hearing testimony later in the meeting. So the first portion of the meeting will be public comment. And if you just have anything you want to say on any topic to this commission, please feel free to say something. And if you didn't sign up, you will also be afforded that opportunity. We ask that everybody keep their comments to 3 minutes. We're not militant about that, but rambling will tend to make us want to say that's enough. And then secondly, if there's somebody who says something in the audience that you either agree with or disagree with, we would ask that you keep your opinion to yourself. Everybody should be afforded the right to express their opinion without harassment. And so we also ask that about agreement. Just let them speak. And we will do the same. We will listen. Okay, that being said, do we have Commissioner Briscoe? Oh. Kate. Hi. Oh, sure. While we're waiting for that, I'll read the advisory committee. We'll start with the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee. That will be July 18th at 4 p.m. You can join that via Zoom, or you can go in person to the Air Rescue Firefighting Station, the ARF building, which is at 2005 West Bakerview Road in Bellingham. Again, that's July 18th at 4 p.m. If you want a link to that Zoom meeting, it's on our website. The MAC meeting isn't until September. They're going to take the summer off, our Marine Advisory Committee. That first meeting will be in September 10th at 6 p.m. It will be here in the Harbor Center room, and it is in person only, no Zoom link for the Marine Advisory Committee meeting. With that, just talk amongst yourselves, and we'll get back to you when we know we've got Commissioner Briscoe on the line.
Good.
And for those of you that aren't aware, Commissioner Briscoe is fishing, so he's got to call in remote. It is his living.
Yeah, so
Roll call, Commissioner Briscoe,
Here.
Commissioner Shepard,
Also here.
and Commissioner Bell is here. All right, we're going to start with our public comment period. Anybody wishing to address the commission for any reason whatsoever, we now have a listening Bobby Briscoe. Feel free to come to the mic. For the public comment, I have Doug Carlberg signed up first. And again, if this is on the public hearing, I will stop you. Not trying to be rude, but we do have a place for that later in the meeting.
Good afternoon. My name's Doug Carlberg. My comments concern the shipping terminal and the proposal to rebuild it. Much of the stuff around us at any given moment, be it product, commodity, or raw material, was once on a boat. To get it from wherever it was made, processed, or harvested to wherever it's used or consumed, all this stuff embarks on a seaborne journey around the world. It happens thousands of times a day on tens of thousands of vessels moving from port to port. Ships handle roughly 90% of all global trade. 50,000 ships are constantly in motion every hour of every day. None of this system of everyday products works without a port to load and unload. As ships have gotten bigger, the number of ports deep enough to handle those ships is shrinking. Deepwater ports are a rare commodity. Bellingham has one of these rare deepwater international shipping ports. Deepwater ports have profound economic impacts locally. If Bellingham Bay was in Ferndale would have a population of 100,000 and Bellingham would be 15,000. That's the impact of a port. Land suitable for deepwater shipping is rare, and they're not making any more of it. So it's really kind of a crown jewel. As we confront the challenge of reducing the use of fossil fuels, international shipping ports present one of the most effective methods of substantially reducing fossil fuel usage rather dramatically. A truck burns 400% more fossil fuel per ton mile than a ship does, and a ship burns half of what rail does. We're going to save a lot of fuel in the future when we pair ocean shipping terminals with rail on land. This is both smart and green. It also tends to reduce the cost of living because of lower petroleum consumption. Today, we know that reducing loading and unloading time saves more fuel. Putting electricity in for the ship so that it does not have to run ship generators while in port saves even more fossil fuel, as well as reducing noise and air pollution. Ports worldwide create some of the best working class wages in the region, as Bellingham is now the 9th least affordable city of its size in the whole nation. We need those better paying jobs. One last suggestion is in the last few months I've attended and watched a bunch of government meetings, there's county council, city council, port. One of the things I noticed is I saw a lot of the same people at the same meetings. And I wonder what the other 200,000 people are thinking. And I think that it would behoove the port as well as the county to figure out some way of polling those people so that you get some feedback. And it's not just for the people, but it's also so that you know where the sentiment is. Because people like myself that get up to a microphone and get noisy almost daily, they don't represent, you don't always represent the rest of the community, I guess. And I think you can do that in a systematic way. When I watch the videos, you have to go through and cut and paste on them where, if you have a presentation like on the airport, you could clip that for people ahead of time. They could go there and say, I want to see the last 3 meetings on an airport issue, so that you make it easy for people outside of this room to grasp what you're doing, become educated on the subject, and then they'll be able to give you a good opinion of what they think. So stay the course, gentlemen. Thank you.
I'm going to read this exactly as written. Compassionate Friends, Cynthia Conrad.
Good afternoon, Board. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Yes, my name is Conrad Costas, and I represent the Compassionate Friends. It's a nonprofit Greek group of parents and grandparents who gather monthly supporting one another after loss of a child, whether it be young or old. And there's a tremendous emotional pain in losing a child, and each parent grieves differently, but we all agree that we want our child to be remembered. And some families create a temporary roadside marker that doesn't last, or others erect some monument in a cemetery that most people can't afford. And so what we have a proposal is to build a memorial gazebo, approximately 20 feet in diameter, on a concrete slab with a ground handicap ADA entrance that would be open to the public, and it would be owned and maintained by the port, but it would include these small 6x12 little plaques remembering these children that have been lost, or young adults that have been lost in our community. And the TCF, the Compassionate Friends, would monitor that and include these plaques and have them posted there. Another idea is what they call a wind phone. It's an old school rotary phone that people put up just so they could talk to the departed loved ones. It's another communication path for grieving, and maybe include some bench seating. So what we're really thinking about is the Marine Drive Trail Park just up the road from here. It's a beautiful setting. There's only a couple picnic tables there now, but maybe a gazebo might be really enhanceful to the public. It's got a nice peaceful ocean view. So we have got a little proposal ideas here, but our question is, if the port considers this, what is the next steps moving forward for such a structure? And would the port consider possibly partially or fully funding this project? We're estimating the material cost to be around $13,000 to $15,000. And then could the structure be built by volunteers, or does it require to be prevailing wage contractors? And we just kind of want to know what the next possible steps are moving forward after today. May I approach and drop these off for you?
Sure.
Give them to you.
And don't take this personally, but I'm going to review this later.
Bobby, we'll get that scanned and off to you.
Thank you.
Having just seen it, we'll digest it. Thank you.
Our contact information is there for follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you. Nanu? Am I saying that correctly? N-A-N, looks like U-U-K.
Oh, that's me. I'm going to decline for the moment. Thank you. It's Nancy.
Oh, it says Nancy. Nancy. Would you like me to call on you during public?
I kind of like Nanda better.
Would you like me to call on you during the public hearing portion?
Maybe.
We'll have another comment period afterwards too, so if we say something that really spins you, save it for that. Thanks. All right, Dan Tucker.
I apologize. I'll make this brief because I got to run to another appointment that's starting at the same time. So I just wanted to express Dan Tucker with the Working Waterfront Coalition. I just wanted to express our ongoing support for the terminal programs. And I wanted to make a mention that the expansion of this terminal is going to ripple out to the community. Not only is it going to be a revenue generator in and of itself for the port and the nearby properties and the jobs that are created by it, but it is also going to ripple out into the small businesses, into downtown, and out into the county, as well as the people who work those jobs go home to their families and then go out to downtown. And the reason that that terminal works so well is that it is close to downtown. So all of those folks can still go to downtown businesses after work and eat and dine and shop with their families. It's on their way home from work a lot of times. Whereas places like Seattle, those trades jobs are out far south of downtown. They never go there. So that downtown doesn't get any of the traffic that would diversify and revitalize the downtown that we're looking to have. The other thing is that there's a potential for the future of transporting next generation energy and technology through this terminal. Wind power is going to be huge coming up in the next 10 to 15 years. And I would recommend that the council look at how we can invest in getting that kind of industry here in town. Not that we'll have offshore wind necessarily in Washington, but that there is going to be a huge industry around maintaining and servicing and moving those products out to where they need to go. And we can be a part of that and a part of that next generation solution, but only if we have a terminal that is able to handle it. The other thing is that it's important for national security and disaster relief. Goodness forbid anything should happen to I-5. The only way that a lot of goods and services are going to come into this county efficiently is through that terminal, and there again, it has to be able to handle that. So if we ever have an earthquake, or if goodness help us, Mount St. Helens were to erupt again, or whatever reason I-5 was unavailable, that terminal is a lifeline, not just for us, but for the rest of the county and the rest of this region north of Everett. And we're lucky to live in a region with access to this resource, as Doug Carlberg pointed out. And the beauty of it is that we can look to have millions in revenue. Just one contract alone can bring in over $1 million. If we have several running concurrently, think of the revenue that that can bring in that can help to fund community-led projects like a gazebo. So just to reiterate our support, I apologize, I got to duck out real quick. So thank you so much.
Okay, anyone wishing to speak before the commission in this first time? Oh, I was going to introduce.
Can I introduce myself?
I was going to do that. I just want to make sure no one else needs to speak. But I'd like to introduce Xochitl Castaneda. She is the U.S. Department of Transportation liaison for the Pacific Northwest. Feel free.
All right. Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to introduce myself briefly, and I will try to keep it under 3 minutes. I am your new MARAD Gateway Director, so I work for the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Maritime Administration, and my role is to advocate for U.S. ports, U.S. mariners, U.S. vessels, and the reason why we are interested in doing this at the U.S. DOT is because it's in the national interest to support shipping and U.S. flagged vessels and U.S. flagged ports. So most folks probably know when you go to Walmart or you go to Fred Meyer or wherever you do your shopping that what you buy there largely comes in through the ports. 90% of what you buy comes in through the ports, so that's very important. And it's important for us to keep those supply lines running. Another aspect of it is port resilience. As people know, we live here in the Pacific Northwest in the Cascadia Rising subduction area. So one of the things that I'm very interested in is how we can make our ports more resilient so that way after a natural disaster or a Cascadia event that we would be able to get our supply lines up and running and recover our communities, our economy, and our port. So I'm really excited to join you. My background, I'm coming from the U.S. Coast Guard. I've just retired this past summer after 26 years of service. And so really excited to be a part of the community. The area that I operate in includes Alaska, Washington, and Oregon. And I have a couple of business cards if anybody is interested in talking with me. But that is my background, and that's why I'm here, just to let you all know that I'm accessible and here to provide whatever information I can about the support that Maritime Administration gives to ports. Thank you.
And we want to thank you for taking time to meet with us, and also for the amount of time that you spend visiting our customers. It's not lost on us that you know our customers as well as we do. So that is appreciated very much, and thank you for your openness and willingness to talk to us.
As well as thank you for your service.
All right, and then I'm going to just make sure that the public hearing, George, Mark, Ty, Brian, and Patrick, that you are all in the public hearing portion and not the public comment portion. Is that correct? Okay. So we'll move on to our consent agenda. Carrie?
All right, motion to approve consent agenda items A through E.
Anything you'd like to say, Mr. Commissioner Briscoe?
No.
Commissioner Shepard?
Nope.
And Commissioner Bell is also a no.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through E.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Bell is also a yes. All right, now we're going to recess the public meeting and open a public hearing on the issuance of LTGO bonds. So, closed, open, and we will reconvene at the end of the public hearing. So we'll start the public hearing with George Dyson. Long time no see, George.
Thank you, Commissioners and staff. George Dyson, 435 West Holly. And I just say a very few words in favor of, obviously, the more attention, care we can give the shipping terminal, the better. It's been neglected for quite a long time. Doug Carlberg pretty much said the important thing I wanted to say, which is to remind everyone how, orders of magnitude more efficient ship transport is than road transport, and rail transport is also not as more efficient, but it's still vastly more efficient than road traffic. So keep the freight off the roads and on the water. I only want to say one other thing, which is and I'm on the board of the Working Waterfront Coalition, but I'm speaking personally. In the future, part of this plan includes a reconfiguration of the rail line coming into the site, and to keep in mind that ultimately, 100% we're going to get high-speed rail between Portland and Vancouver, Canada. And in the long-term future, it may happen that we decide we prefer to actually put our passenger terminal on the GP site, where it is part of downtown and off the main BNSF line, so that the Amtrak, the high-speed trains can come off the main line, load and unload people, and let the freight go through. So just keep that in mind when you reconfigure those rail lines. And otherwise, full speed ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark? From now on, if I can't read the writing, I'm going to let you finish the...
Thank you. I'm Mark Jerry. I live on 2311 Franklin Street. I'm a third-generation Bellingham resident, a second-generation longshoreman, and I'm here to talk in support of the continuing and funding these projects that many of us who have spoken so far find so important. I appreciate Doug Carlberg mentioning that, yes, it's a lot of the same people showing up for the same things to communicate about issues. But some of the things those people say need to be addressed publicly. In the Salish Current on the 14th of this month, Scott Jones said that this has generally never been a diversified terminal historically. And I took a lot of umbrage with that because I know better, and I used our public library to pull up the ports of Everett, Bellingham, and Grays Harbor, Washington, to address that. There's a couple quotes, I won't bore you with them, but we had 20 terminals back then. Most of them had rail lines. We moved coal, we moved lumber, we moved food, we moved building materials, including concrete. So all things that we have talked about doing through Matt Kress's presentation recently, they did back in the 30s. They did back in the 20s. We have historical basis for continuing to be a deep water port that moves cargo in and out of Washington State and around the world. So thank you so much for your hard work, and I appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Ty?
Hi, my name's Tyson King, Bellingham kind of resident, out in the county, but not too far away, longshoreman. And I wanted my kids to be here today. I was gonna bring them in so everybody could see them. I got 3 of them. Two of them are teenagers. You wanna strangle them? I got a 6-year-old. I don't wanna strangle him most of the time, but like 3 days ago, we sat down and I explained to them what was going on at the port. And we went down and looked where they were saw cutting the dock and working on the dock. And at night, I had to explain to them that there are people in this county that want to shut this down. And they're like, why? Why? I said, I don't know. Why don't you come to a meeting with me? Let some of them explain it to you. Why you don't want living wage jobs. Why you don't want the ability to, I mean, this is like clay, I told them. We can mold now. All the people that are wacko green people, get their hands in it. All the people that are psycho what do you call them, industrialists, to get their hands in, get everybody together in this new lump of clay we can mold into the rebuilt Port of Bellingham, where we can make everybody happy. You know, if we got to run forklifts off of methane from cow poop from the dairies to make the green people happy, we're all going to work. This is a chance to put money in the community, people to work. I got 2 kids to put through college, 3 here in a while. But, and I don't know if anybody here lives here or owns a piece of property in this county. It ain't cheap. We need good paying jobs. Kids eat a lot. Land taxes are through the roof. Gas is expensive. Kids that drive are even more expensive. Anyway, we got a good chance here to make good strides towards where everybody can come together. I mean, granted, yeah, we're gonna piss off the people that want to go have brunch and not look at a ship out of their balcony. Tough shit, you move to a port town. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad he didn't sugarcoat it. I like that.
My name is Brian Sarney, and I have thoroughly enjoyed the awareness that have been shared by a ton of people here. And I promise you, I am not going to make any friends right now. And it's not that I don't want a proper shipping terminal. If there can be a proper shipping terminal, and if it can make money, why isn't already happening? Why can't the port fund it? Why don't the longshoremen support the fees to do it? Why can't you sell bonds legitimately? Sell munis. If people are going to make money, and you believe they're going to make money, people will invest in them. If the port can't, why does it have to fall on the taxpayers? Where I come from, you have to learn to be fiscally responsible. You don't borrow money. If all of this had been penciling since the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, there would be a prospering port. I'm sorry, something doesn't add up. Somebody has not crunched the numbers. Somebody doesn't have a business plan, contracts stating specifically, these companies are going to come. If you build it, they will come. That's the rules. We've heard that. They've done movies about it, right? But here, why does it have to fall on the community? There's nothing I don't understand about all of the numbers that have been shared by everybody here. Every single one of them, I can recite them phrase and verse. What doesn't make sense? Why does it need to fall on the community to pay for something that should be fiscally paying back to the community? And if these go out, will they get paid back? What happens then? So if the community is making an investment to earn money, does the community earn money? If not, I'm confused. Why does the community have to pay for something that is going to earn the port money in the future? I understand the potential for the jobs. I understand people working close to town. I want to see all that as well. What I don't want to see is the community having to pay to foot the bill for something that should little by little be snuck up upon. It's only been 100 years, or not 100 years, 1920, well, actually 100 years. So there you have it. If it hasn't been done in 100 years, why? If it would have penciled, it should have penciled. Either sneak up on it and don't put the burden on the community, or sneak up on it slowly so the community doesn't have to take the burden. I appreciate your time and energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Sheldrup, and the only reason I can read Sheldrup is because I know who you are.
Yes. Well, hey, everybody. Can everyone hear me all right? There we go. Yeah, my name is Patrick Sheldrup. I run Top to Bottom Marine Service and Diving, just like Can't hear mention, he probably knows my father, Roger, who founded the company back in '86. He used to be a little bit more involved in this, but he wants to pass it off to a younger generation. He'd be more involved here, right? I'm also the treasurer of the Working Waterfront Coalition. And I just want to speak briefly, just as the perspective of a small business owner in support of the revitalization of the shipping terminal. I just kind of want to give an example of how, not specifically this terminal, but how the shutdown of the Fairhaven shipyard, how we actually lost a lot of dive business personally when we lost that part of the commercial part of Fairhaven, right? So although we don't do a lot of business at that shipping terminal, I know how I could see how that affect other businesses if that were to go out of business. Also, when it comes to supporting further like longshoreman jobs, being able to have that port, so the terminal open, it allows people to put more money, like Dan said, in the downtown. And if even though they work on boats, and even if this might be the smartest decision, they actually get their own boat to be able to work on. That brings more business to businesses like mine and other people that work on the port for services on maintenance on yachts and stuff like that. And what I don't want to see is as volume goes, if volume goes down for when I am able to service and maintenance and put maintenance on for a lot of boats, I'm going to have to raise my prices to be able to keep myself and my employees paid for all the benefits that I want to do. And I really don't want to do that. I don't want to see myself in a place where I'm only servicing rich people on their boats, or I want to be able to have equity of access to the waterfront, right? I want to be able to have younger people start being able to access and be able to own boats, right? And that comes with jobs, right? So that's just a little bit about my perspective from a business owner position when it comes to supporting the shipping terminal. Thank you.
We have no one else signed up. If anyone else wishes to speak to the long-term bonding, state your name and purpose.
Joe Schmidt, 830 East Douglas. I'm a longshoreman, and I just wanted to address some things that this gentleman said. Prior to the mill shutting down, the shipping terminal pretty much supported the ferry terminal, the marinas, the airport, paid for it all. That's where the money came from, the shipping terminal. After the mill shut down, the port decided, with that executive director, wanted to go a different direction. Wanted to get rid of everything, wanted to do condos, parks, and get rid of all of it. And I take offense to it. It's bullshit. And that's where it all went. And we finally got an executive director and a commission. It's taken years and lots of hurdles, and we're finally getting somewhere where we can actually make some money and reduce taxes for the community. That's where we're at. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in the public hearing on limited tax general obligation bonds, which is on the agenda for this evening? You will not have another opportunity. It will be post-mortem if you wait.
And if you're online, please raise your hand.
I'd like to say something, if I could, at the end of this session of speaking. I'm glad Joe stepped up, but for the people in the audience who don't understand the history of this terminal, I've been here in Bellingham for 68 years. I worked as a longshoreman. My father worked as a longshoreman. He also ran the salmon terminal over in Fairhaven. So my family's been in and around the port docks for my entire 68 years, and my dad's probably 15 years and out of high school and stuff. But aluminum ships, pulp ships, log ships, food cargo ships, that's what went out of our terminal and came into our terminal all the time. That terminal produced from 5 million to 11, high was 11 million, I believe, dollars in profit for the Port of Bellingham. The marinas, most everything we have came from the revenue from that shipping terminal. So for someone to say that, we shouldn't be putting money into it, we shouldn't rebuild it, they really don't know much about economics, and they don't know much about what we're supposed to do as a port commission and a port. We're mandated to create jobs. We're mandated to have our entries, port of entries. to let that terminal go to waste, if you think taxes are high now, I don't know how the county would support the marinas or the airport or the other things. If you think prices are high now, wait and see what happens if that terminal doesn't operate. The reason it's costing so much to fix that terminal is because Joe spoke to, we had some people, and I'll just say, I think they were idiots, that shut down the terminal, dismantled it, took our trains down, got rid of it, and thought they were going to put up condominiums and apartments, and that was going to support Whatcom County. How they could even manage to go against their mandates from Olympia, I don't know. Why the people in the state didn't come up and say something, I don't know. But I do know this. The shipping terminal is the answer to the monetary problems that Whatcom County and the Port of Bellingham are faced with. We would not be able to maintain most anything at the port into the future if we don't make that terminal operate. And there's business waiting. There's businesses waiting for us to get it running. There's businesses waiting for us to get that rail spurs back in that were taken out. So it's not like this is some pipe dream. It worked before. It paid for itself. It paid for a lot of things. And the gentleman that said that it didn't work in the last 100 years knew his facts and looked up the history of that port, he wouldn't be standing up saying what he does. That's all I have to say.
So before we go any further, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the commission meeting. So the public hearing is now closed. Commission meeting is back. Regular commission meeting is now open. I'm supposed to do that, but I don't like it. And we'll move on to our action items. And Tamara, you have a presentation.
No presentation, just I have some speaking points. So Tamara Sobczak, CFO, Port of Bellingham. I want to mention first that we have two guests on Zoom. We have Justin Monwai from Piper Sandler. They are our bond underwriter for this issue, and we have Cynthia Weed from K&L Gates, and they are our bond counsel. So if there are questions that I can't answer, they're available to us. This resolution before you tonight authorizes the issuance and sale of the bonds and delegates authority to Rob and I to approve final terms and conditions. As you know, the purpose of the bonds is to partially fund the shipping terminal repairs and the repairs to the pilings under the cruise terminal. I want to mention that these are general obligation bonds, and there's a misconception that GO bonds are paid for with property taxes alone, and that's simply not the case. The commission can decide if they want the port to pay for the GO bonds with revenues or taxes, and in this case, port revenues are going to be pledged to pay for the debt service. So no additional property taxes will be levied. Taxes are simply like a backstop guarantee for investors, and that makes it really attractive for the investors, which means that they are willing to take a lower interest rate on their investment, which is better for the port because then we get to pay a lower interest rate. So that's why we went with the GO bonds.
Can you do me a favor? Can you turn the sound up just a bit on her? And then, oh, maybe that's it. And then,
Is that better?
Yeah, would you just repeat what you just said?
Yeah, apologies. So that is so loud. So these are GO bonds, and the misconception is that general obligation bonds have to be paid for with property taxes, and they do not. The Port Commission can decide whether they want to use port revenues or levy additional property taxes to pay bonds. And in this issue, the plan is to use port revenues, not issue additional or not levy additional taxes to make the payments. Taxes are simply a backstop guarantee, which is attractive to investors, and that means that investors will accept a lower interest rate on their investment, and in turn allows the port to pay a lower interest rate. So our terms are more attractive than a revenue bond in this case. The next step after tonight is in the next couple of weeks we'll get an updated Moody's rating, and we expect that to go well. And then the bond sale should happen mid-July, and depending on the markets at that time, we're looking at 4 to 4.5% yield on these bonds over a 15-year period. I want to mention we did look at a long-term, a long-term bank loan. We looked at 10-year bonds, 15, 20, 30-year bonds. We looked at revenue bonds. And the 15-year GO bonds had the most attractive terms for us. With that, staff is obviously requesting approval, and we'd like to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioners? I heard it referred to as an illegitimate or not a legitimate issue of bonds, and it is a perfectly legitimate issuance of bonds that we're doing here, and we will have buyers, and the buyers will be lined up to buy our bonds. And the reason the buyers will be lined up to buy our bonds is we have a very attractive balance sheet. That means we carry very little debt. This is a very routine thing for the Port of Bellingham to be doing. It is the only time that we've done an issuance where we've had this much public outreach, because we've gotten emails over this and we've heard some public testimony. But this is not unusual for us. In 2010, we issued $40 million worth of bonds to expand the airport. We didn't have a contract with every future passenger coming through the terminal, but we knew those passengers would show up if we expanded the terminal. So we did. And now we're about to pay those bonds off, which makes our balance sheet even more attractive again. We've issued refunding bonds, I'm guessing 5 or 6 times in my tenure at the port, and we've never had any attention like this. I just want to assure people that this is a very routine thing for us to do. It will be paid for by the revenues from the shipping terminal. We don't anticipate any tax increase to pay for this, and it is a very legitimate thing for ports to do, is to issue bonds.
Commissioner Briscoe, do you have anything more to say? I'm afraid. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I do. Since this whole thing with ABC started down at the port, people deciding that, the port can't do this, the port can't do this, we shouldn't do that, we shouldn't do this. We have a lot of people that keep coming to meetings, and people emailing me. I read an email just recently here. And people, please get your facts straight before you start mouthing off. I mean, obviously, the people that are speaking do not know the history of the port, or wouldn't be speaking like they are. They seem to think that if they can stop this bond, they're going to stop the port from moving forward with a working port dock. That's not what the port's doing. That's not what we were elected to do, is to run the port into the ground. We were elected to bring the port up to speed, make it economically viable for the entire county, and help the entire county make money, and provide living wage jobs, and provide commerce in and out of town. And that's what we're going to do. So Scott Jones and his group of folks can't ever seem to get their facts straight, and they're always mouthing off and talking bad about the people at the port that are doing the job they're told to do and asked to do, and in the right manner. I'm tired of it. I don't want to hear any more of it. So when you come to speak factually, please. You want to write an email to me, write with facts, please, because it takes me about 5 seconds to figure out that the person doesn't know what they're talking about, has nothing to back up what they're saying, and it gets old really fast of wasting people's time when you do that. Because what you do is you create a situation where people get tired of listening to you because you don't know what you're talking about. Then come along, you do know what you're talking about, and nobody wants to listen to you anyways. So please be please be factual when you address the port meetings and you address us as emails. Please have facts in hand. That's all I've got to say.
Commissioner Shepard.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. So this sounds like we're borrowing up to $15 million over a 15-year payback, and we'll be expecting interest rate of 4 to 4.5%. So we're looking at somewhere between $1 million to $1.5 million per year.
Yeah, it's a not to exceed 15. It's closer to 14. We just need a little cushion just in case. Until we actually go to market, we don't know the exact interest rates, but that's where it's trending right now. Bond payments aren't like a mortgage. It's not the same every single year. So the projection is between $1 million and $1.4 million over the life of the bond, variable annual payments.
And what's the ratio of funds that are going to be spent on the terminal versus the project in Fairhaven with replacing pilings at the ferry terminal?
It's a little over 10 million for the shipping terminal and a little over 4 for the cruise terminal.
Okay. Yeah. You know, in-water work is expensive. It is complicated. The regulatory environment is quite dramatic, and it takes a lot of upkeep for these structures. I've certainly heard from community members who are interested in wanting to make sure that future cargo is compatible with our goals for maintaining a clean environment, having you know, our handle on stormwater, and also wanting to maintain a working waterfront. I've consistently heard both messages. And I think we really can have cargo come in that is cleaner, that's quieter, and also produces the economic opportunities that we're looking for as a community. And so that's my goal for this project here. And I really do think this is a generational investment. The shipping terminal, unfortunately, wasn't invested in the way it should have been in the past generation of commissioners that were here. And it's up to us to make those investments so it is available as that economic engine for the whole community going forward. And so I do appreciate folks who have shared their opinion and contacted us, and will keep wanting to be engaged in this process. It's a community asset, it's a community opportunity, and I do think this is a good move for us and the right thing to do for our future investment.
Thank you. I'm going to echo a little bit of that sentiment and just lament a moment because of the downtime between the time GP was here and the time it took us to clean up the waterfront to get it to a place where work began. Unfortunately, that took 20 years. And in that 20 years, the community got accustomed to a very quiet, non-working waterfront because it was essentially stagnant as we were doing the cleanup. We're now in a phase where, as we ramp things up, things are going to start to look more like what a working waterfront looks like. And I'm unapologetic about that. I just think this needs to be a working waterfront. I think the pier needs to be replaced and fixed. I also lament that it was not kept in good repair over the years. I wish it had. It would have been a much easier pill to swallow than now. But I also want to reiterate, we did our last bonds without raising taxes. It is not a tax issue, to your point. The intent of this commission is not to raise taxes because of this, as you heard her say. Otherwise, you would hear me, because I think housing prices are high enough, and adding another layer of port property taxes would be a burden, might be a bridge too far. But I will say, from my standpoint, it needs to be working. It needs to be a waterfront that's active. And all of the changes that we have proposed for this will make it a vibrant waterfront. And some of the most interesting waterfronts I've seen in the world are ones that combine a work environment along with housing and commercial and some vibrancy. There's nothing like watching a good waterfront work. So with that being said, I'm in complete agreement, and I'm ready for a vote.
I just wanted to mention one other thing, and I really appreciate Xochitl being here and the support we've had from our federal partners. You know, I see this as really, it's a partnership. We have to do our part with the funding, and we look to the feds for their support as well. And, you know, our team has been really dogged about going out for grants. Right now, we're in for a RAISE grant to have federal support for bringing rail infrastructure to that terminal. Looking for that federal support to kind of dovetail with the local support that we are offering. Our environmental team just submitted over almost $17 million in funding requests from the EPA to bring shore power to that shipping terminal by creating a microgrid, installing solar panels, battery storage, and providing the shore power for those vessels that are going to come in and want to connect to clean power on that shipping terminal. That's more federal support that we're looking for. And I think we're really trying to make sure that we are going hard after that federal funding. We're looking at all the grants that are available to us, and that we're also taking the initiatives here locally to back that up. It's always hard to see debt, and it's always hard to spend lots of money on projects, but I do want to call out some of those other initiatives that we are going after, and that we're going to keep our eye on as we go forward. That's it for me.
Carrie?
All right. Approval of a motion to adopt resolution number 1410, providing for issuance and sale of limited tax general obligation bonds.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard?
I'm also yes.
Commissioner Bell makes 3.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the last action item. We're going to go to a presentation on the airport. If you're in the audience and you want to hear about the airport, feel free. Otherwise, we're done with the business of the port for today. But you ought to hear about what's coming at the airport. Not to lose an audience. Because our last general obligation bond was for the airport. I want to thank you all for attending, and thank you for bringing this to our attention. Okay, so we'll move to the presentation portion, and our Director of Aviation, Kip Turner.
Hey, good afternoon. Understanding the time, I'll try to be as brief as I can, and might be a little louder than I need, but let you guys decide. Just wanted to give you a quick update on how the airport's doing right now. This has got a lot of information on it with this slide, but in summary, just wanted you to know how busy we are out there. Summer's upon us. Our team is moving very fast. We have an excellent team at the airport, all 23 of them, and they do a really good job, and they have a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of things going on. This just gives you a quick snapshot of what some of those things look like. And as summer picks up, we're doing all types of infrastructure projects on the runway and inside the field or inside the fence. A lot of painting, a lot of things that are required for our airfield maintenance and for our runway maintenance. It picks up on our stormwater BMPs and things like that because of the extra action that's going on. And then it's also a time that we tend to do a lot of training. We've sent some folks off for some advanced snow symposium training, give them a little better insight for when we have weather in the winter to keep our runway open and our airport open. And then this week itself, we're doing a ARF, Aircraft Rescue and Firefighting live exercise. We have joint partnership with that with Bellingham Fire Department, North Whatcom Fire Departments, and numerous other people that come together for this annual training that we actually host here in Bellingham. Most airports have to send their personnel somewhere else to do that, and we actually host it here, so it's a very positive thing for us. You've already been familiarized with the recent annual FAA inspection that we've had. And we've processed a lot of things since that to follow up to that and touched on that, including the having WashDOT contracted for the fence line clearing on the northwest end, and negotiating with the contractor now, the environmental consultant for the other clearing that we've got to do, and then some things we're doing on signage. Security, I want to touch on security for a moment. BLI is a very safe airport. When airports are discussed as far as safety and security, we have one of the safest in the country, I would dare say. Just a quick look at some of the numbers to date for the year to date. Everything that we have had that is a security concern has been very minor. The security violations that we've had would be about as minor as you can get. Unauthorized breach, somebody opening the wrong door at the wrong time. Basically a parking lot instance where a parking lot lever got broken accidentally, and things of that nature. We're undergoing a security inspection this week with TSA, Transportation Security Administration, and they do their annual inspections once a year as well, so we'll know more about their findings after that. But we have a very safe environment, and I like our community to know that, and it's a very safe place to operate and an easy and fun place to operate out of.
I promise not to be unruly ever again.
Well, I wasn't going to mention you by name, but since you're out there.
You guys handled that very well.
Some additional things that are ongoing for that, the port's recently enhanced its security with a couple additional security patrol officers. They also come out and assist with security at the airport. And we do have licensed or law enforcement officers, certified law enforcement officers out there. So I just want people to know in our community, it's not only a low-cost airport, but it's a very safe airport. We're also environmentally friendly. We do a lot of, we take a lot of preemptive action to be environmentally friendly to the community and back to the industry. Some of the things we've got going on right now are LED runway and terminal lighting projects, putting solar panels on top of our terminal roof. We recently put in an airline electric ground support equipment switch so that we now have at least one airline operating with electric tug. Cuts back on diesel production. It's obviously a more friendly atmosphere with that. And we're doing things to actively pursue more. We're looking at SAF sustainable fuel to replace jet fuels, unleaded fuels, and we hope to be offering full sustainable alternatives for that by the year of 2026, if not before. So we're doing a lot of things to have an environmentally friendly atmosphere at the airport and make sure our community understands that as well. Another big thing that's going on in the industry right now is electric aircraft, and particularly electric vertical aircraft. We're researching grant opportunities to see how we can possibly put in infrastructure for that to accommodate that and be part of that future endeavor as well. And then finally on this list, we're constantly trying to strategize new incentives for the particularly the home-based pilots and the pilots based in Bellingham to use the quiet path that we have established to try to cut back on our noise production. And I've got some incentives that I'm working on now that I hope to bring to the commission that might enhance that a little bit more in the forthcoming weeks. Referring to noise specifically, we're already making strides in that area and very productive ones. As you can see here on this slide, our noise complaint have gone down over the previous year from 22 to 23, a little over 33%. And then I'll just sort of jump to the very bottom of that on that last bullet item. 95% of those complaints are coming from one community, and I'll just be even more specific. Probably 92.3% of those are coming from one man. So we've done a really good job addressing noise. We're continuing it, and we're going to do more, but there's been a lot of progress already made in that regard. We understand the value of community outreach. We try to get to the community as much as possible. I gave a presentation literally today at lunch to Aquinas Club, a great club, awesome folks, and it was fun to be there. They actually saw this same presentation. I was in Cliffside neighborhood last week for an evening a meeting there about their noise concerns. Probably 30, 35 people, very friendly community. I took my wife. We were both very welcomed. We were probably there a couple of hours and enjoyed that, enjoyed meeting the folks and talking to the folks. They seemed receptive and understanding as to what's going on and what we can and can't control with airspace. And they also are appreciative of the efforts that we're putting in, I believe, and know that we're going to keep trying with that. But we do lots of things like that. We also have the Airport Advisory Committee, or the BIAC Committee is referred to. We've got a meeting coming up on that July 18th. It's a quarterly meeting. The intent of that is literally to have community participation. That's what we want. We want that participation, and we want that feedback so that we can then bring to you what is that feedback and what does that look like and how does that represent us. We're making new strides every day on our general aviation outreach. We think that's a vital part of the airport, and we think that's a vital part of this community. We have a lot of people that are based in this community that want to use the airport for more than getting on a commercial airliner. So we put a lot of focus on that. We're now hosting routine monthly meetings. Most of these are monthly for these organizations, for the Washington Pilot Association, the Whatcom Young Aviators, which is oriented towards youth, and the 99s, which is a group that's nationwide, actually maybe worldwide, but it's focused on getting more women in aviation. We host those. One of the things that we're trying to do right now is we have a modular building that you may be familiar with that's really not been being fully utilized as best it could the last couple of years. I'd like to turn that into a community civic-minded building for for interest related to airport and interest related to people coming out to airport. So we're about to put a coat of paint on that and come up with a thrifty name for it that sounds enticing for community groups that have interest in being out at the airport. We want more community to come out to the airport. I'd like to reinstitute our air service day or our air fest day. We need to budget a little bit for that, so that'll probably be 25 at the earliest. But those are the things we'd like to do as a minimum to get some things going for the community. This is just one of the ads that we put out not long ago, trying to seek more membership to the BIAC, or the Airport Advisory Committee. We've not had the success we really want. We want more people to apply for this. I think we've had 2 applications come in the efforts that we've put out recently. Not to regurgitate some of the things that you heard not long ago in our airport budget retreat, but just touching on some of the highlight projects. I've just ruled out a couple of 3 or 4 here that just to touch on, because we really are proud of these projects that are coming up. Sort of touched on this one a minute ago, the runway LED lighting. It's just going to be so many good things that comes from this. Our lighting is probably 40 years old on the runway. It causes a lot of problems maintenance-wise, cost-wise, and obviously safety-wise when you have insufficient lighting and it's not what you want it to have when you have pilots coming in at night, and particularly adverse weather. So luckily, fingers crossed, we're still being able to salvage what we have at the moment. But the good thing is we've found the funding to be able to replace that. And when we talk about FAA grant funds, I've heard a lot this afternoon about tax dollars. There's nothing at the airport that's funded with tax dollars, nothing. Operations, grants, or anything else. It's all user fee funded. So when we talk about grant funding, we're talking about user fee funding. But we've been able to secure user fee grant funding for this. We're doing the design this year, and we'll be doing the construction, actually the design and construction, 24 and 25. Same thing for a runway refresh. The last time the runway had a fresh coat of pavement on it was 2010. Pavement usually has a life cycle of about 15 years, and then you want to put at least a top layer back on it to keep the cracking at bay and keep the holes and things like that from coming up. So ours is due, and we've been able to get ourselves in line for that project as well. So in 25, we'll be doing the design for that, and in 26, we'll be doing that actual construction. And then we're excited about a new control tower, fully funded. The FAA, through a separate grant program, again user funded, created a grant program just for replacement of towers. I believe they chose 20 airports, if I'm not mistaken, nationwide. Out of the 20 airports they chose, Bellingham was a proud recipient to be one of those. And we've been working very hard with the FAA and their partners to facilitate getting that moving in a positive direction. We recently had the siting meetings for that. It was pretty neat. We were able to be involved with that in a pretty detailed level. And they chose 3 sites. The 3 sites they chose, which I'm excited to talk about, were all on the west side of the runway where we currently have no development, but we own property over there. One of the sites they ruled out, the remaining 2 sites, which site number 3 is in the middle, if you can't see that smaller print, and then site number 2 is the one on the south end, or the 2 remaining sites, site number 3 being the preferred site that they're moving forward on. And we're really excited about that because that's going to start creating expansion opportunity for the west side of the runway through a grant-funded program. It's going to give our tower a brand new tower. They're going to have better lines of sight. They won't have blind spots like they have now in a couple of places. It'll rule out all of that. It'll give them a better line of sight for aircraft. And we're hoping it's going to give them some new equipment that gives them better, positional awareness for aircraft. So we're really excited about that. And then, yeah, you bet.
Will that include new radar at all?
Well, that's some of the equipment I'm talking about. That's not part of this particular program that was funded, but in concert with that, there is other measures going on that we've got some really good help with Rob and Mike and our congressional leadership to try to get ourselves aligned for, to get that funding as well. ADSB particularly, it's a way for the tower controllers to identify aircraft when they're not in line of sight. And we feel like there's a lot of momentum going there and a lot of energy for that. So we feel like we'll probably have that as well soon come to us. I don't want to get ahead of the horse ahead of the cart there, or the cart ahead of the horse, but it's looking good. So it feels like there's energy there, and that'll probably join us as well. I think we can probably count on that. The conversations are looking better than they ever have. That would not be the full extent of what we would want. We'd want to fight for more after that, but that would really be a huge leap if we got that. I think this is the last project I sort of pointed out because I didn't want to regurgitate everything you heard about a month ago, but I do want to keep putting this one front and center in front of you and the community every chance we get. And that's our International Arrivals Terminal. As you know, the port put an initial investment into this back in 2014 when they did some of the terminal work that Rob alluded to earlier from that previous bonds that was done then. The shell's there, but the facility itself is not built out, so we're trying to garner up the funds for that. We heard some good news recently that Senator Murray has proposed a $3.2 million, I can't remember what the formal congressional directed spending. So we're hoping that we're hoping it's still got a lot of, that's just coming out of committee, so it's got obviously a pathway in front of it. But we're fingers crossed and hoping that we get some of that, at least hopefully enough to finish the design. We're also pursuing other grants for this as well to try to get that project finished. We have 3 of our top 11 markets, which I'll touch on in a minute, are markets in Mexico where we have over 100 passengers daily each way flying out of our market to Mexico. So the fact that we can't process them on a commercial footprint is just a lot of lost business for us. We do have international already for the general aviation, which is corporate and private. We process between 40 and 50 passengers a month through that facility and those operations from customs. So we're really fortunate to have the footprint that we already have and to have the initial set to this. So we're really excited about this as well. And then moving a little bit away from projects that we have planned to what we hope to have on the books here soon, as I've touched on base with you on before, we have recently put out an RFP, a request for proposal for people that are interested from a private sector to come in and build on the airport. Build in our airport industrial park, build inside the fence, whatever they may have. We know of at least 4 or 5 different investors that have approached the staff, myself and others within the last 4 or 5 months, illustrating interest to do that. It prompted us to put together a request for a proposal that illustrates the available building sites that we have that can be built upon, and we've put that out, and we anticipate some good results on that, or at least hope that we will have some based on the interest that we had that led us to this. Switching over to airline updates real quick. Yep.
Could you go back a slide there?
Sure.
How targeted is this? Are you asking for anything? Are you directing the type of business development opportunities?
So we're focused on aeronautical. So it would be for us, our interest would be aeronautical development in both the aeronautical, the business park and the community and the inside the fence, if you will. So yeah, I would say it's targeted for aeronautical focus. The airport is an asset to the community in such a huge way, in so many ways, not just on a commercial aircraft, but in so many other ways. Airports are typically your number 1, 2, or 3 economic engine in a community because they have so many offerings that a community can have. They bring in high-paying wage jobs if you focus on aeronautical industry for those. They bring in opportunity that, just as an economic multiplier for the community in so many ways. So we're trying to make sure the diversity of our airport is one that touches all of those segments. So we want to be a productive airport in commercial aviation. We want to be productive in cargo. We want to be productive in industry that offers jobs in MRO, maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Things that lead into the many facets of the aviation industry that are all very profitable for a community. So we're looking at a diversified source of development, and that's what we're hoping to see from people that are interested in bidding on this if they come to us with that. If their interest is probably, not aeronautical, I don't think, first of all, those people will be responding to this, so I don't think that'll be an issue. So I think the people that we have that we know are interested will be responding with an aeronautical interest.
Okay, my follow-up was, what examples of the types of businesses you might anticipate. You kind of gave a few. You mentioned potentially maintenance and repair.
Yep.
As one direction.
Well, the sky's the limit. The aviation industry is evolving so much, so fast. I mean, if you just go back to 1903 with the Wright brothers, look what we're doing now. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's rapidly evolving even as we speak. Vertical takeoff is huge now, so that infrastructure is totally different. Doesn't necessarily have to be inside the fence. Electric aircraft is really becoming a thing of the future, where aircraft are electric, just like electric cars that you're seeing, or even boats. But you know, there's so many different facets right now of avionics and maintenance and repair facets. You don't always have to have the big footprints that maybe some of the prior things required. You can do a lot of things with a smaller industry that's taking place in the industry right now with smaller footprints, and that's good for us because our footprints are not really large. We don't have a lot of space to build on at the airport, either in the industrial park or inside the fence. So what we have, we want to maximize and strategize the best we can to get us the best bang for the buck for what we can bring to the community.
You've mentioned the fence a couple times. What has to be inside a fence and what has to be outside of the fence? What is the fence is a security barrier? What does that do for as an attraction or a requirement for some businesses and not others? Yeah,
it's a little more. It is a security barrier, but it's more than that. Also, it's also a defined airport movement area. So usually when I refer to inside the fence or outside the fence, usually it's more about movement of operation. So actually typically where an aircraft can position itself or maneuver. Fences get moved, particularly at airports. We have on our ALP, our airport layout plan, already provisions. This was done in 2019, long before I got here. So good forthcoming sight about what to do in the future, but already shows where the fence will be relocated for some of this development. It's just a matter of the chicken and the egg, getting the development to prompt that. But that's what I mean by inside and outside the fence. It's a very movable item depending on how you're building out and what you're developing and what you're focusing on. But yeah, it's also a security barrier, but that's not its sole purpose. It's also defines a movement area, if you will, and that's more focused on the movement of aircraft.
For people listening in, is there a place where they can see those specific plots?
There is, yeah. That RFP, that request for proposal, is on our port's website, and it's been published in certain news releases, which I'm sorry to say I don't have in front of me. But yeah, and it's also so it's on the port. Yeah, it should be easily found on the port's website. Yeah, that'd be the easiest place to guide our local audience, I would imagine, is port's website. Or if you can't find it, call me and I'll make sure they get it, because we're definitely seeking anybody that's interested. So, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Again, cognizant of time, I understand everybody's wanting to move on, so I'll try to be brief as I can. Airline updates, just give you a quick touch on what's going on in airline world, because that's always of interest, usually with the community particularly. The third Seattle flight started in March. The Allegiant Air has announced their service to, they've already started actually now, because this was a couple of weeks ago, their seasonal service to San Diego. And they've also announced they're going to continue their Oakland service in the winter, where they would normally have stopped that before, but because of the recent Southwest news, they're going to continue that. And then we're constantly doing a lot for airline recruitment. We have, in just the next couple of weeks, we have a site visit scheduled with a brand new airline that's not serving our market yet. I'm not able to get into details on that, but the conversations are far enough along. They want to come out and look at space. They want to come out and talk lease. So we're having very positive discussions with at least 3 new carriers right now, 2 of which say they could start service as soon as October possibly. So we'll just wait and see. And then we're having continued very positive service with our incumbent carriers, Allegiant Air and Alaska. They recognize the demand in our market, and I believe when the fleet issues are resolved, you'll see them doing more and more in our market as well. Speaking of Allegiant, they're about to have their 20th anniversary with the Port of Bellingham and Bellingham International Airport. So that'll be coming up in August. Definitely be inviting you folks in the community to come out and celebrate with them. And they're not just here as a carrier, they're here as a base. We're an Allegiant base, and that is a huge asset for an airport and a community to have an airline of any airline based with you, so not just serving you, but based with you. So super excited about that. And then just looking at the list, there's a ton of opportunities that we've got in front of us that we've already got scheduled and already got lined up to go to and participate in. And these are venues where we target more and more service. So constant efforts are going on there. We work very, very aggressively on airline service in our community. Speaking of our service, I just wanted to touch base real quick. A lot of our market is made up with the Canadian-based passengers. So we get, we're now up to 56% of our passenger market is Canadian-based. That's up from just 2019 where it was, or 2018 where it was about 50%. So we've been climbing in the last 3 or 4 years on our Canadian-based traveler, and there's reasons for that. We're more affordable. BLI is more affordable. We're more affordable across the board. We're very affordable to the airlines. We offer a very competitive, low-cost price package to the airlines. It's an incentive for the airlines to want to use us. That's why they like using us. And we're very affordable to the passengers in every aspect. A Canadian passenger taking the same flight on average out of a Canadian airport starts out about $100 cheaper almost at Bellingham because of the tax structure alone that they have in Canada. On the Canadian airport. So we start out cheaper, then they get to Bellingham. They find very low and competitive price parking. They find a very easy and nice terminal to flow in and out of, and friendly faces and service. When they get back from flying in and out of Bellingham, they run up the road, right up the road from the airport, and they go fill up at Costco. And you know, and they it's a multiplying effect. They come into town and they eat, and they come into town and spend the night. So it's a very positive audience for us, and a very welcoming audience for us.
That number is more impressive in Canadian dollars. Just saying, you're at about 130 Canadian dollars.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's part of the excitement for it too, I guess. Just touching on some future market opportunities. Our top 19 markets. These 19 markets here all have more than 100 passenger daily each way flying in and out of our market. This is not guesswork. This is data. This is all data driven. This is people that are buying tickets, having to go to another airport or make multiple connections to get to these markets because we don't have daily direct service to these markets. That is a huge number. There is many a time over my career where I have gone and sat in front of an airline and pitched a route that had 30 PDUs or passenger dailies each way, because that's a number where you start getting interest. We have 19 markets with over 100 PDUs each way, so it just shows the demand for our market. And these are people coming out of our catchment area. These are not people coming out of somewhere else. These are people buying tickets in our catchment area. The sources, the data is tracked. We're able to pull the data and see the data. So it's just having the flights to get them to fly out of Bellingham. Talking about that, LAX is the number one. You saw it on that last list I just had up. The LAX market is phenomenal. I mean, we have over almost 1,100 passengers daily each way flying back and forth from our market to LA. So you can only imagine some of the discussions I'm having right now with new carriers and our incumbent carriers about routes. LA is at the top of the list. So is Denver, and so is east of the Rockies and things like that. So, but LAX is obviously an example of that. That's just a couple of miscellaneous updates. I really just jumped to the bottom one. We're hosting excited to be hosting the all-employee event coming up, and there's a happy hour at the Holiday Inn afterwards, which I'm sure everybody's ready to get to now if it was that day. But other than that, there's a young fellow with lots of questions and answers, so I'll see if you guys have any questions and answers.
Mr. Shepard, start with you.
I think I asked most of my questions. I guess we touched on last meeting for our incentive packages that we're shopping to these prospective airlines. We let you know that if those need to be updated to come back to us, and so just extending that opportunity again. We want those incentive packages to be right sized for the current market.
I appreciate that. You will be seeing me in the near future with a detailed, strategized plan. I'm working on it now.
Okay.
But I don't want to come to you until it makes sense to me and makes sense to you. So I want to make sure it makes sense to everybody. But
yeah.
to have it pitched to you.
Well, it was a great presentation. Really covered a lot of ground and demonstrates how active your team is in lots of different areas, from real estate development to route development and upkeep of the asset that we have. So thanks for that comprehensive look, and I'm just thrilled to see all these different projects.
Thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions for you, Kip. These new LED lights we're putting in the system on the runway, is it, can you control the brightness of it? Or is it just like the new police cars, when you turn them on, you're blinded?
Well, they are high-intensity lights. That's a positive thing. The thing about the LED that I'll point out in terms of the brightness of the light, and it's a great question, by the way, particularly for runway lights. The LED runway lights are a better light as far as adapting to color. So they're able to, and I'm not that kind of a scientist, or I'm not that smart to be able to get into it, but I can tell you that somehow or another, they are able to differentiate the color of the different color waves, and there's other people that know more about it. But the end result I do understand as a pilot is it gives the pilot a better clearness and a better visibility from the LED than what they would otherwise have from the older light style that we have now. So it's a safer environment, definitely, from not just the intensity, but the way the LED differentiates the color spectrum, whatever that. I'm not sure I fully understand that myself, but I know it's
having
better.
been through the fog and haven't aborted many flights because of fog, will they be more visible through that?
They will, yes. They help on those kind of things. Now, there's certain other parameters that come into play there that may or may not change whatever flight you're on in relation to the fog. But yes, from a pilot's perspective, they will definitely be enhanced and be a better solution for that.
Okay, my second thing, I guess they must have an adaptive system of their own that the color spectrums change in the variety of different weather inclement settings they're in. I'm guessing.
Something like that.
You know, it was a long time ago. I've been here a long time, but it was a while back. We talked about an aviation learning center there for pilots of commercial grade and private grade. With the tower moving to the other side and so on and so forth, are we going to bring this back to the forefront so that we can have some kind of learning center here for pilots to get started with in this area?
Definitely would be something that you would see support from us on, and we have some of that now, just for full clarity from those that are offering it. Our partner BAS does offer a very nice flight school. They have a 140, I think it's a 141 ground school, but whether it's Part 61 or 141, I'm not sure. And all that means is it's a scheduled curriculum versus a non-scheduled curriculum. But they do offer a flight school, both ground portion and flight. They've just recently added another aircraft to their fleet. I think they're up to 4 or 5 different aircraft in their fleet now, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have other instructors on the field as well. And then this modular building concept that I was talking about would not only be great for civic community organizations that have interest in airport-minded functions, but also it would be an excellent resource to use in that kind of capacity as well if we had somebody that wanted to dive deeper into that with a more detailed curriculum.
That would include commercial?
Yeah, so so pilot training is basically, you can do it through a couple of different formats. There's a classroom, school type, university type format. They call that Part 141, and then there's a Part 61 where you can do it piecemeal, if you will. And both of those can take you from never being in an airplane to being a commercial pilot.
Okay, yeah, because I'd like to pursue that. I mean, we talked about it, and it was kind of during the pandemic, in the later stages of it, and then it's kind of like everything else that happened to the pandemic. Everybody had a lot of time to talk about a lot of stuff because we didn't have to do anything. But I think it's time we did something now. I think that it would only be in the best interest of some of our young folks in the county that may want to pursue that. And I know there's definitely a shortage of commercial pilots. Well, not at the moment. We're in a shortage of airplanes, but that's going to turn around. But I'd like to see us try and put something together that would facilitate that. And then in the second part, you know, as far as for me, for the Port of Bellingham and all of our stuff, whether it's the airport or the marine terminals or our marinas or whatever we're doing, the level of success for me is how many people we put to work and keep to work, and the service we provide to the people that own the Port of Bellingham, which is the people of Whatcom County. And it makes me feel good to see that we keep our rates down for our airlines, that they're makes them interested in coming here to serve our people, and that, you know, everybody needs money. We all need money. Port needs money, but it's more important to me to provide that service and bring those airlines here with a lesser bankroll. I'm more concerned with having the flights to where they need to go, and the ability for people to park and afford to park. Those things mean a lot to me. It means that we're doing what we're mandated to do. It's our job, provide services. We're not, as far as I'm concerned, we're not in business. That was the biggest port bankroll in the state. It's more important for me to put people to work and provide the service like you're providing there, Kip, to the people, that they can afford to come here rather than go somewhere else and we can still survive. So thanks for what you're doing there, and thanks for the presentation. And I hope we can do something for a pilot program. I'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
There's nothing I can add to what he just said. So thank you very
Okay.
much.
You bet. All right, thanks.
All right. This is now the time for the end of the meeting public comment period. Nancy, come on.
I've been taking some notes as this meeting's been going on, and I should probably talk to Mike. I've never been to a port meeting before, so I'm on a learning curve, and just a couple random thoughts, so bear with me. I appreciate hearing from the longshoremen. I have no background in longshoremen working on a waterfront. And one of the gentlemen talked about the efficiency of shipping versus rail and trucking. And that was new to me, so I appreciate hearing that. And Ken, shout out to you, because you are right. We have not, I mean, I've only lived in Bellingham 26 years, not 100 like Bobby over there on the monitor. Just kidding. But I haven't seen a working waterfront. I don't know what that looks like. So that was a good point to hear. And I guess for me, and Bobby, with all due respect, I am part of the Save the Waterfront. I just kind of joined this group because I have concerns about noise pollution, high impact industry, low impact industry, and whatnot. But my main concern is, you know, to be honest, we had the ABC debacle, right? And that was a hot mess. And if this is going to be done, I want it done really well, to where we're not polluting. There's not this noise pollution. People aren't getting sick because of chemical releases and whatnot. And so that's really important to me. I also don't want Bellingham Bay to look like Seattle and Tacoma. Seattle and Tacoma, the water, you can't see through it. It stinks. They have rats and I mean, it's also a hot mess. So I would also be really concerned about that. I also wonder how this all fits in with the city of Bellingham's plan for the downtown development. And someone said, well, if you build it, we're all going to go shop downtown. And I'll be honest, I don't go downtown after 4 o'clock because I don't feel like it's safe. And there's a bigger issue with, I see you laughing already, Bobby. We should, anyways. There's a bigger issue in my mind of how do we make that downtown area feel safer to people like me, so that I will go down there and spend my money, not go to Fairhaven, where many of the merchants are now bailing to. Wish I could read my writing. So I guess in closing, I worry about the noise. I worry about the pollution. I worry about this being done really well with efficacy so that it benefits all of Bellingham. Okay, not just the longshoremen. They've got to have jobs too. I get that, we all do, and living wages and affordable housing. But I want to make sure that it's done well and we don't have another ABC in the rearview mirror. Thanks.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that can't read your writing.
Yeah.
So thank you for helping me with that. Anyone else wishing to speak at the Open comment period. Anybody online? Joe, it's open.
Joe Schmidt again. I just wanted to apologize to the commission. I just got some comments kind of got under my skin. We really, for the port to succeed, the rail is very important. The dredging, the reinforcing the dock, all that stuff is going to bring revenue into this community. And I appreciate the people are gone now, but all the support that I heard, and I appreciate the ladies' comments. And we have very good job. We make very good wages. We have great benefits, and even after we retire, we have a great pension. My wife and I are covered with medical. It's a job that I was able to raise a family on one single income, my wife and I and 3 kids, and buy a house, 2 houses. It's an awesome job. And I think with the infrastructure, the things that the port's doing right now with the stormwater and all that, it's going to be clean. I mean, this is a statewide thing now. It's not just Bellingham. Everybody has to do this. So Seattle and Tacoma, that will get cleaned up. And I just want to say, I mainly apologize because I kind of got, some comments got under my skin. So anyway.
Never apologize for what you speak, Joe.
Joe, I appreciate you more than you know, and I appreciate your attitude and I appreciate your humbleness. But there are times when something is said that is not correct and it does get under your skin, and so you don't need to apologize to us, but it is accepted. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you more than you know. Any other public comments? You're not public. You can go to other business, dude.
This is business. That's okay, I'll wait.
Then anyone online? Okay. We'll move to other business. Bobby, since you volunteered.
Okay, so it's a bit more of a history lesson for some of the people that will watch this and are here and can go back and watch it again and maybe learn a little bit from it. So there's been a lot of finger pointing that we were polluting when ABC was here and we weren't polluting, or we'd been fined by the ecology and so on and so forth. It's another unfactual statement. We weren't polluting. Our intention wasn't to pollute. And it comes to mind, I wonder if anybody else in this world, and other than the 3 commissioners, have ever made maybe a mistake. And, you know, it's like we ended the Bellingham Bay life as people knew it, which really, I'm aghast at that thought process, because when I grew up in Bellingham, you had GP pumping everything they could in the water. If you fell in the waterway by where the granary is, which I did once, your skin got burned. There was a line from Post Point straight across to just probably southwest of the Nooksack River dump area that was red. It wasn't brown, it wasn't blue, it wasn't green, it was red. It was a dull reddish brown. And that was all the stuff that was oozing out of GP's outfall pipes. So I've seen all this, and it really, you know, what's been done around Bellingham, as far as I'm concerned, from what I saw growing up in my 68 years of being in Bellingham, not 100, but maybe we'll get to 100, I don't know. Pretty much is a miracle. I never thought that we could transform Bellingham Bay back to what it is today. It's a million times, if not more, better than it was when I grew up here. Mother Nature is pretty, well, how do you say it? Reboundful or resourceful or whatever to help us clean up the mess that we created. And with ABC, it was never the port's intention to pollute noise, dust, water, any other things. Although people seem to think that was our intention, that was not our intention. Our intention was to get our shipping terminal started and have commerce and put people to work, which is our job as commissioners. That's what we're elected to do. Follow the rules. That's what we've been doing. Unfortunately, there's some people that believe that they actually ran ABC out of town. Nobody ran ABC out of town other than themselves. They broke the leases we had with them. They didn't put in the environmental equipment they said they were going to put in and agreed to. And that's why ABC is not here. Not because South Hill and what people think they believe up there. They're here because they didn't stand up to their part of the agreements, which would have been non-pollution and some of the things that we were having trouble with. So that's why they're not here. This Port Commission is dedicated to a clean, healthy, working waterfront. We always have been. Now, those people might not have been the best choice. And as I said, I guess nobody else on this planet's ever made a mistake except maybe these three commissioners. So moving forward, as far as I know, this commission is going to do the best it can possibly do at making everybody happy, which is what we always try to do. But sometimes things happen. Hands are tied for a while. People make mistakes. And it's fixed and we move on. And that's what's been done. They broke the rules. We had to move on. It's very simple. So as far as wanting to pollute the bay, not at the top of my list, or the environment, period. I'd rather see we clean it up, and I've been helping clean it up for a long time. That's probably one of the first guys that ever put plastic garbage bags on his boat, brought all his junk to the harbor and threw it in the trash rather than over the side. Because that's what I was raised doing. Everybody threw their garbage over the side. Hell, that big deep hole, Eliza Island's got more tons of garbage in it from Bellingham City than people could shake a stick at. So we used to take it out there on barges and push it off with caterpillars into the bay. So we've come a long ways around here. And for people to shake their finger at us and tell us that we're polluting and ruining Bellingham Bay is absolutely ludicrous. We're not, we haven't been, and we're not going to. So I guess that's about all I got to say about that, except for we're much better off now than we've ever been. So for people to say we're going backwards isn't even in the right process track. That's all I got to say.
Just out of curiosity, do you have any other business?
That was my other business.
Mr. Shepherd.
All right. I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody who helped bring the Shoestring Circus to town. My family got to go see it last weekend. Really fantastic amenity here on our waterfront. Really fun, very professional, and made up of lots of local people who are selling out shows almost through their entire kind of series of events here in town. So thanks for bringing them, and I hear we're going to bring them back again in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. We signed a 3-year agreement with them to come back.
Oh, very good. Well, I know they've been appreciated by lots of other folks as well, though my kid did have to get up out of his seat and hide when the guy put a sword down his throat. That put him over the edge a little bit. It was made me a little squeamish for all of us.
I think we need an X-ray machine on that guy when he's doing that, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah, when he had a light up one too. They turned out all the lights and he had a glow in the dark sword. I had not seen that before. That was something new for me. Also, I just wanted to give a shout out for the new art wrap. The mural on the bathroom down there looks fantastic, and the benches that Jason Leclerc has been working on. Lots of nice additions down there, so thanks for everybody who's been working on that. That's it for me.
All right, I will say I've had 2 people comment about the circus, and they were both absolutely amazed at the quality of the product that circus delivered. They did not expect it. Both were surprised. So it is a great event, and they're welcome.
I think they all sell out. I'm pretty sure almost every event but one, maybe.
Yep, so there's still a few tickets left for this Thursday at 8. Otherwise, it's sold out for the rest of June.
Wow. Amazing. So the last thing I've got is, in addition to what we've been dealing with, we've also seen an assault on industrial ground in the county. Efforts to rezone industrial ground and attempts to essentially take away high industrial impact areas. It's got a concern to me and what it means for housing. So the port has taken some initiatives to try to convene people around that issue. And I know the Planning Commission has met recently in the city. So Tyler, can you just address how that Planning Commission meeting went, and then where are we with convening a?
Yeah, sure. Tyler Schroeder, Director of Economic Development. Nice to be here, Commission. First, if I could just real quick, I just want to give a shout out to the team, Rob, the commissioners. My first 5 weeks has been great here at the Port of Bellingham. Transition has been very comfortable, and really looking forward to working with the group on all the opportunities that are in front of us.
You've already been here 5 weeks?
I know, it's four weeks and a couple of days, but I'll just give it 5 weeks. Yeah, so the county council has put on the docket to amend the heavy impact industrial zone in the city's urban growth area. So the urban growth area there, Marine Drive, Bennett Drive, that there are a number of different landowners that currently operate industrial uses in that location. Our understanding is it was really kind of in reaction to the ABC Recycling permit application for the metal recycling at the 20 acres that they purchased from Lehigh a few years ago, back in 2021. As commission knows, there are about 6 different large property owners out in that location: Lehigh, Bell and Osier, Moore Steel, Blythe Mechanical. The port recently purchased the Marine Drive Industrial Park. Mount Baker Plywood, which is not at that location, but is in that same heavy impact industrial at the shoreline, and the 20 acres that ABC Recycling has purchased. The council seems to be intending, the county council intends a 2-step process. One, to look at the heavy impact industrial uses and ensure compatibility to the neighboring property owners out in that location, because there are some residential areas in that location. And then do a fuller review in the zones, the uses, the compatibility, Bellingham coordination, and the upcoming 2025 comp plan process. The Planning Commission has met on that twice. Port staff, myself, was there in both of those meetings. They met on May 23rd and June 13th. The first meeting was really focused on looking at the lists of uses that are prohibited in the city UGA, heavy impact industrial uses, talking about what performance standards should be added. And then Planning Commission discussion was on the impacts to the existing uses and getting a better understanding of the non-conforming uses in case the zoning changes out in that location. Planning Commission at that time requested county staff to reach out to all of the property owners in that location after the May 23rd meeting and coming back in the June 13th meeting. In the second meeting, they were focused on a proposal that really looked at changing the allowed uses in the heavy impact industrial to light impact industrial uses. So by text amendment, changing the actual zone and the allowed uses that are in that location. And then also discussed an opportunity to prohibit some uses in the HII, metal recycling being one of them, and then looking into the performance standards at that location and where it goes. At the end of the June 13th meeting, the Planning Commission asked for additional guidance from the County Council to get intent on what the council was really interested in doing. And our understanding is that the council will likely have a Planning and Development Committee meeting on July 9th to discuss where they want to go. Some circumstances have changed. The docketed item came up when ABC Recycling had a permit application. So it'll be interesting to see if the council considers that now that application is not moving forward, whether or not they want to take a kind of an interim step.
What was the date on that again?
June 9th, or July 9th. July 9th. And to then maybe look into this larger conversation of the 2025 comp plan process. That's really where a thorough analysis of the compatibility of the uses in the zones, the county could really have a more in-depth conversation on. I do have some background in zoning in that location, but I'll leave that to later if the commission wants an update on that. To the topic of the 2025 comp plan, there has been a request for the port to provide some kind of outreach and background analysis in regards to the industrial zoning throughout Whatcom County. Rob has asked my team to work with the stakeholders, the Business and Commerce Committee, to identify a strategy to provide some input on where industrial lands should be located in Whatcom County, what the right uses are in those industrial lands, and what the right locations are for those industrial lands. And we'll be building off of some of the work that the port's already accomplished. In 2019, the port did the I-5 corridor infrastructure database, a really good GIS database looking at lands and the developability of them and the infrastructure that's associated with them. And then just recently last year accomplished the Whatcom County Infrastructure Property and Resiliency Database, which added to that. And so that'll become a baseline discussion to where is industrial land zoned, how close are the infrastructure, water and sewer to those locations, what's the likelihood for actual development. I think a lot of community members are starting to ask themselves, do we actually have industrial lands that are ready to be developed for economic development? And are they located in the right location, or is there a better location for them? So I'll be working with the working group on that and kind of guiding that discussion with city and county planners and the Business and Commerce Committee in the near future.
Would you add me to the list so that I get invited to those?
Absolutely. Yep. We're just now kind of strategizing, and I'm meeting with a number of different people, but as soon as we kind of identify it, you'll be on the list, Commissioner Bell.
Has the discussion, sorry, Michael. Oh. Has the discussion strictly been around what do you do with industrial ground rather than how do you stop putting housing near heavy industrial? I mean, the zoning isn't that you need to get rid of all industrial ground. It's how do you stop housing from encroaching on areas where we need to do our work? Has that discussion never been?
It's starting to. I think when you look back just take the UGA location there at Alderwood and Marine Drive in Bennett. In 1999, the county and the city accomplished the Urban Fringe sub-area plan, and it really acknowledged the existing heavy impact industrial uses that were there at that time. Acknowledged the compatibility or not compatibility, and put in place prohibited uses, put in place requirements that the facilities are designed, constructed to be harmonious, to put in place language about buffers, and put in place language about enclosures. And so there's been a lot of industrial operations in that location that some would say have met that balance, that compatibility. I'm sure there's been some comments like the port gets with industries, but I think overall, the industries that have been located in that location have had that compatibility. But there's existing land use patterns that it's very hard to determine zoning in those areas where there's residential next to industrial uses. And so I think the idea for the 2025 comp plan is to have that conversation, review what's already in place. Something struck me earlier today when we were talking about industrial uses. There are also a lot of requirements for those industrial uses, and there is an obligation for the uses to accomplish those regulations and requirements. And some responsibility has to be on them, and then as a public entity, the city and the county have to ensure that they're compliant with those. So I think that larger conversation about locating residential uses and industrial will hopefully be done in the next 18 months through the comp plan process. And that's the idea of this work group, is if there are locations of industrial zones that need to move elsewhere, ensuring that we have enough appropriately zoned with infrastructure in the location for those industrial zones to be located somewhere else.
Do we have a sense if there is a down zone to light industrial, does that preclude the existing business operations that we have at our facility or with any of the other tenants who are currently operating in that heavy industrial zoned area?
That is a very good question. And I think I would indicate that there is concern about the ongoing operations if it changes from HII to LII. What the actual details will turn out to be where the council goes. But I think that's the interest of the port to keep track of it. And I do want to recognize that the real estate group has been contacted by a number of either tenants or neighboring property owners in that location that are concerned about that change from HII to LII. The land use pattern, the actual operations, and when you review the heavy impact industrial and the light impact industrial, some may be allowed even in light impact industrial, but that's why I think this longer term conversation into the comp plan is more appropriate instead of maybe a reactionary decision by the county based on the ABC recycling to do a short-term review of it. I'd much rather have a longer, more thorough conversation to ensure that there's no consequences that were unintended. Because I think right now that is the question. You would believe that there are unintended consequences if you make that decision without thinking through them.
I have a question, Ken.
Bobby, yeah.
Tyler, in these processes, is there any wording? Has there been any talk that, okay, let's say they're going to take away, 60 acres of heavy industrial area there at Marine Drive. Has the county considered property elsewhere to replace that? Or they just figure that they can just change the zoning and it's as is, where is, and tough stuff? Or are they going to, because we all know the heavy industrial area keeps getting gnawed away at and gentrified, are they going to put or zone property somewhere else in the county for heavy industrial to replace what they're taking away? And will there be monetary compensation, do you think, to the people that they're taking that away from? Because, it's easy for them to sit behind the desk and drop the gavel and say, oh, this is the way it's going to be, as people suffer millions of dollars in losses in their property. So, it baffles me that the county council can think they're going to change zoning without either finding property to replace it with so that we don't lose that heavy industrial, or at least monetary compensation to the people that own that heavy industrial property that now don't have that to sell. So have you seen that side of the coin, Tyler?
Yeah, good question, Commissioner. I've tried to get out of the game of reading the county council's mind on a daily basis. But
no crystal ball?
Yeah, or the crystal ball. There hasn't been conversation on the monetary that I know of. There have been a number of council members, both city and county, and I know port commissioners that are interested in finding new industrial lands that is better ability to be developed. So, I would anticipate through the comp plan process that the review of, because it's not just this location either, Commissioner Bell, right? It's not just the Marine Drive location. There are a number of light impact industrial lands north of the city of Bellingham that are covered in wetlands or that don't have the infrastructure to actually be developed. And so there's a lot of review in regards to, is there a better location for those? So I do think that will be on the docket. I just hope that the county council doesn't take action in the immediate future without having a more thorough analysis of that.
Yeah, Bobby, to your point, those industrial lands are where they are for a reason. There are rail spurs in place. There are transportation corridors that are easily accessible because all heavy industrial needs transportation corridors. They also are assisted heavily by rail. They had the proper zoning. Getting heavy industrial zoning is almost impossible. Getting new zoning for housing is much easier, believe it or not. And that's a heavy lift even then. But more importantly, if you're going to replace like for like and you want to take industrial ground here, you've got to have a rail spur. You've got to have heavy industrial sewage. You've got to have heavy industrial power. You have to have all of the amenities that a heavy industrial user might use. Those aren't there. And it's going to cost the county, it's going to cost the city a tremendous amount of money to put that kind of infrastructure in place. The right answer to this would have been not to have put housing around that heavy industrial to begin with. Unfortunately, they did, and now we're the bad guys because we're actually citing industry on heavy industrial ground. I don't know that the job of finding new industrial ground is going to be that easy a lift, because you just don't have the power, the sewer, the water, the rail access that are required for some of these industries. You're just not going to pick them up and move them in that vein. And as we start to look towards the shipping terminal, every time you move an hour away from where the commodity is being shipped or where it's being directed, you're $120 an hour just for the truck, not to mention the carbon footprint you're adding to the mix, the labor you're adding to the mix to load more trucks. So it's a bigger discussion than just taking HII and moving it to LII. And that's really the point I want to get across. Nancy, I did that all for your benefit.
Well, the other thing, Ken, that everybody seems to not talk about is why that housing is there in Birchwood. It was because the people that worked at those factories and those business, and the industrial stuff around there lived right there and walked to work. That's how that stuff all got started over here. That's why those homes were there. They were right where the factories were. And then as production cut down to factories and you had a whole bunch more people move in, they bought into the neighborhood, and pretty soon it's a neighborhood. It's not workforce housing anymore.
So Tyler, thank you. The committee as it stands now, when's it going to meet next? And
Yeah, so my understanding is that on July 9th, the Planning and Development Committee for the Whatcom County Council will be hearing the Planning Commission's input and providing additional intent on where to go.
Is there another planning commission meeting between now and the 9th?
There is not. And so that committee is Councilmember Donovan, Councilmember Ellenboss, and Councilmember Scanlon. And we have been talking about it internally, meeting with real estate planning and Rob, just in regards to any impacts that we would see from the port properties, as well as some of the tenants and existing businesses. So we will keep the commission in the loop and make a decision about how we want to provide some comment to the county council, maybe on that July 9th.
Any other questions?
One more. Tyler, did ABC withdraw its permit?
Yes. So there is a change in circumstance.
And Lehigh is ramping up their operations at the cement plant.
I have heard that. I don't know for sure.
We don't have firsthand knowledge, but it is anecdotal.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. I had to stop and wait for trucks and train. They're doing something there.
My last one is kind of my drop the mic moment, and it is that if you go to the Discover.com blog, Discover.com recognized Bellingham as one of the 5 cleanest cities in the United States. You'll be able to go to the website, I'm sure, for the port and find that article, but it was quite an honor. I actually had somebody in San Francisco send that over to me, but it's quite an honor to be listed as one of the 5.
And that's discoverer.com.
Discoverer.
Discoverer.com. And we'll get that up on our website and out on our social media.
And this is a guy who writes a travel blog and has got incredible, I got lost in the website for about half a day and got in trouble for being there. Because now I want to move to half of those cities, but incredible. So thank you. Anything else, gentlemen? Meeting adjourned.